The Peugeot 9X8 finally has a rear wing. We already spoke about this a few months ago, but now Peugeot is presenting the car officially. So what happened? We talked about this a couple of times before, but let's quickly summarize it. Peugeot presented their LMH contender without rear wing and even wrote on the car that they didn't want a rear wing. The concept behind that was that they could reach the maximum allowed downforce without a rear wing and with ground effect. With that, they have a car with lower drag. To reach the minimum allowed drag, they could add some draggy design features. At the same time, the speed from which it was allowed to use hybrid power, hence the front axle, was 120 km per hour. So Peugeot decided to use 310mm front and rear wheels to have good traction on the front axle. That also meant that the aerodynamic center of the car was further forward, which works nicely without rear wing. But the regulators changed the allowed hybrid speed to 190 km per hour, so LMH cars wouldn't have such a big advantage over LMDH cars. That meant that cars didn't need such large front tires for the front electric motor anymore, and hence 290mm front tires and 340mm rear tires would be the better option. But for such a distribution, the aero balance should be a bit further back, and since Peugeot didn't have a rear wing and it was now too late to change the concept, they tried to create more downforce at the rear with some smaller winglets. So in the end, the Peugeot had less traction on the rear because of the narrower rear tires. And additionally, a car which relies on ground effect is very sensitive to ground clearance. On bumpy tracks, where the car is set up higher, it means it loses a lot of downforce. A rear wing is not sensitive to ground clearance. So in the end, Peugeot updated the whole concept and it now has wider rear tires and a rear wing. They claim that 90% of the car are new and the drivers had a better feeling right away. The pictures we see at the moment are renderings, so we have to wait to see the real car for more details. But we can see here that they are using a 2-element rear wing where the flap is likely to be adjustable. And the rear wing mounting is very interesting with swan necks either side. That means downforce doesn't go in the center of the car on the gearbox, it somehow needs to be transmitted from the sides to the center, which usually means more weight, but it's nice to see an unusual solution. Peugeot says the car is faster, but they didn't reveal yet how much faster it is. So how do you like the new Peugeot 9X8 with wing? Let me know in the comments below and see you at the next video.